Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's Freedom Thinking Community Group. My name is Dave Ellery.
And I'm Jenny Ellery.
Between us, we have Freedom Thinking. We try and do these each Monday. Oh, the date is the 17th of March, 2025. And the reason why I do this is because if at any point these kind of end up on a hard drive and buried in some site somewhere for future generations to dig up, then I'm making it easier for them to know what era we're from, so they don't have to carbon date us and all that kind of stuff. So 17th of March 2025. Yes, this is a via donation event. Anybody who wishes to make a donation, then please do. We do these via donation to make them accessible to people, make them accessible to everybody. We want people to have access. We put these out on YouTube. We float them on YouTube after we record them. There's frigging tons of them now. There's loads from we always used to record them, and then we stopped recording them because, in all honesty, I think we got a little bit lazy, didn't we? Couldn't be bothered loading them up.
Well, also I used to have to edit them because of things that you'd said, and I got bored doing that.
Yeah, that's quite true.
Yeah.
So I had to rein it in
a
little bit. Yeah, not too much. And so yeah, there's quite a lot from previous as well. So there's loads. But yeah, we put these out there for people to come across and to listen to. And we know we've been getting messages from people who are saying that they're listening, and some people didn't join, and some people can't join. So thank you, those of you who are watching on catch up. We really, really appreciate it. We hope you're finding value. Saving you a few quid when it comes to going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist or something like that. Perhaps we're saving you a few quid. Perhaps what we're sharing is actually having a positive impact on your life as well. We hope so. That's why we're doing it. Yeah, so donations, if anybody wishes to make a donation, there's a few ways now you can donate, and I'll put them all in the link below. We've got PayPal. Our PayPal ID is info@freedomthinking.co.uk. We've now got Buy Me a Coffee, which is quite simple. You just click on the link. It'll say Buy Me a Coffee in the description. Click on that. Cole, you donated. Was it easy?
It was a little bit clunky, but that's only because it was the first time round.
Cool. All right.
No doubt when I donate next week, it'll be nice and straightforward.
Perfect. Thanks, Cole.
Yeah, but they don't have decaf coffee.
They don't have decaf coffee. No, that's right. Yeah, so it might be a little bit clunky, but hopefully it'll get itself ironed out. You just put your details in and press send, and or we'll probably put our bank details in, bank account details, because apparently you can't do a right lot with just bank account details. Cole?
Yeah, sorry, mate. I looked into that for you.
Yeah.
Probably better if they do contact you on a DM and not have them on the open.
All right. I'm not going to put my bank details on.
Yeah. Sorry, mate.
That's good. Good. Cheers, Cole. So if you want to pay via bank transfer, make a donation via bank transfer, get in touch with us, info@freedomthinking.co.uk, and we can send you our bank details. All right, we have got an event coming up on the, what date?
4th to the 6th of April from 3 until 9.
Carry on.
And it's called For the Love of Life, Born to be Free? Born Free?
Born Free.
The Born Free.
Your title.
You changed it slightly.
Your title.
You changed it
Born
slightly.
Free.
Born Free. The Born Free event.
I'm going to check that.
Yeah, just check it's correct. So everyone's welcome, and it will be recorded, and we'll put it up afterwards. I just liked the title because, I don't know, I think there's so many ideas about life and who we are and all those kind of things, but I think we are born into that infinite field of potential, and regardless of whether or not we have had previous lives and there's karma, any of those kind of things, I still feel like we're born into an infinite potential. And I think there's something about this understanding that can take us back to that space of openness and feeling of freedom to recreate our lives, recreate our character in any moment. And I think this understanding just describes and points people back to that freedom. Like the last one was Ocean of Freedom. And it's that space within us that's not touched by our thought creations, our ideas, our beliefs, society's ideas or beliefs. It's untouchable. And I think when we touch in that space again, I don't know, everything else reorders and life takes on a very different meaning. So we're going to try and do at least 3 of these a year, and get a bit more organised, so we'll have them in advance and say, because we love doing them. We're also in the process of putting together an in-person retreat. We're just looking at some retreat centres in Cumbria and also down in Suffolk to see who's got availability. So I think we're looking at maybe somebody wanted it to be in the school holidays. So we're going to try and look at like the summer half term, and also the school holidays, the summer holidays. But we'll keep you posted with those ones.
Yeah, it's been quite mad actually, just how many people have said they want in person. Oh, everybody at once. Must have been something happened in the air all at once. Everybody's going, can we do an in-person retreat?
And we love those.
And we do, yeah. The title is called You Were Born Free.
Okay.
That is the title name. And I love that, because as I keep saying week after week, the thing that I found for myself was freedom. Total freedom. I remember a man once saying, I want the freedom you have, Dave. I said, oh, really? I said, tell me, what does that look like to you? And he said, well, you're always happy and you love everybody. I said, oh, right, false and false. I said, that's not true. I said, that's something you've made up. I said, I'm not always happy. I said, I don't always love everybody. I said, but I do consider myself to be free. I don't live in the judgment that creates the prison around those kinds of experiences, which I'm really, really grateful for. And I just said to him, you know, the moment we encapsulate, the moment we say that some feelings are not valid, are not right, they are not welcome, you create a prison. Surely total freedom would be the capacity to feel everything. Would that not be total freedom? And is that not what we're born with? Is that not what nature endowed the human being to experience? I think so. And to me, that's one of the greatest gifts anybody can wake up to in this world, rather than trying to change themselves, rather than being so afraid of their feelings and thinking their feelings are such a wrong thing, to wake up and realize they're not broken. Just because you feel what you feel it doesn't matter what you feel either. And really, you know, people can go, what about this feeling though, Dave? And what about that? What about this experience? What about that experience? It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. The freedom lies in the recognition that it doesn't matter what you feel. Nobody's damaged, nobody's broken. Proper gift. The freedom lies in the capacity to, rather than being afraid and trying to run away and beat up or stamp out certain feelings or experiences, the freedom lies in the non-fear of it all. Not being afraid of the experiences. Allowing experience to happen. I guarantee if people could allow their experiences to flow, they'd flow through so quickly. But because people go up against them, they go to war with them, they they don't like the waves that their ocean mind is creating. They start trying to push the waves back into the ocean or trying to stamp them out. Can't understand why they create more turbulence within their own being, or why that experience lasts longer than what perhaps it could have done. Well, you leave the mind alone, it'll balance itself out, just like an ocean. After a storm passes through, it doesn't stay wavy. It doesn't continue to beat up the boats, smash up the docks. It calms down. Look at everything in nature. all behaves the same way. We are that nature. Where do you want to go tonight?
I was just laughing in my head. We went swimming yesterday, and Dave came away and was like, those guys who were chatting in the changing room made me look like a Catholic schoolgirl with my language. And I was like, really? I was like, for Dave to be slightly offended by someone's language completely blew me
It was
away.
horrific.
There's always someone worse.
There's always someone worse.
I'm sorry, but that was actually what was just running through my mind
And
when you
actually-
asked me.
Better. They were actually better at swearing than me.
But it was funny because it just sounded so horrible.
It
And I'm
sounded
like,
so common. That's honestly what you were thinking
that's
about.
honestly what just popped into my
That's
head when you
correct.
asked. Sorry. Don't mind.
I've totally put you on the spot.
I know you totally have. I was just thinking all of mine end up coming back to Lucia because when you were talking about freedom, watching her last week, because she's not been particularly well, so she's been quite temperamental and like easy to cry. But I loved it last week because we took her out and we went to this beautiful old church. What's it called? St. Patrick's.
Oh,
the
St.
one that's fallen.
Peter's.
Or St. Patrick's is
Oh,
the
St.
one, the
Patrick's,
ruins.
yeah, at Heysham.
And it was kind of warm, kind of sunny, but not that warm. And she was just like, I want to take my clothes off. I want to be naked. And then she said she got naked, she's taken her shoes off, she's running around, and she's like, come on, to our friend Jackie, you do it too.
I want to see your body.
I want to see your body. And I just thought there was such beauty and innocence in it. And like, as a society, there's so much kind of over sexualization, but to her, it's just like, it's just a body, it's free. And I love watching that freedom and love watching what she thinks is possible. Like she gave Dave this tiny bit of like fluff mixed with maybe, I think it was maybe like tissue paper. Like, could you make that into, what was it?
She wanted it making into a stack of stackers.
Yeah. So like these rings that you put onto a pole. So can you make me another one of those out of this? But there's something like she's doing it a lot at the moment. Like she'll give you a square of tissue and be like, can you make this into a baby grow for Rhea? And I'm like, not right now, but I'll think about how that's possible. But what I'm loving seeing is that there's no limitation on what she thinks might be possible. So for us as parents, we're doing our best to not kind of limit what is possible and what is belief. Because she'll say things like, I've done it wrong. She's asked me to do something and I've not done it right. So I said, well, I can't read your mind right now. It might be possible, but right now I can't read your mind. You're going to have to give me more information. But I'm starting to see how quickly, as little people, all of us would have been influenced by something someone said. And suddenly we create a belief or a limit. And that infinite potential, that blank piece of paper of life starts to have that tunnel that Margaret speaks about. We get more and more of a tunnel that we look through. And it's weird because I keep finding myself trying to find ways to communicate with Lucia that's very open and not finite. Like right now, this is how I see it, but I don't know. Because you can see how quickly we create concept and belief that limits us. And she was asking me, my friend's a singing teacher. I said, oh, she teaches people to sing. And then I was like, right, but everyone can sing, but she just helps them really get their voice out there and she helps encourage them because I don't want her to think that there's a way to sing. It's like we can all sing, everyone can sing. So some might be more in tune than others, but even that idea of being in tune is like, it's all made up. But I can see how quickly we can get conditioned and stuck in belief.
And then the joy of the singing goes, you know. So I'm not the world's greatest singer.
Lovely voice.
I have, yeah. But like, I love singing. When I sing, I love to sing. Lucia wanted me to make one of those. That, in fact, that out of that. Literally, that's what she gave me, wasn't it? She was like, "Can you make that out of that, please?" Right. I don't think I can, Luce. I don't think I can. She's like, "Try, Luce." I think I'm onto a no winner here. I don't think I can. But we are being very careful not to limit her.
Also, like the idea of bodies, like
Mm.
we didn't want to say, oh, actually, as adults, you're not allowed to strip off naked here. We'll get arrested. Like all these rules and things. It's just such a. I think when you have someone that doesn't have all of those restraints and beliefs and concepts and ideas of what's acceptable and not acceptable, you see how made up it all is. You see how we've all conformed to these made up ideas and beliefs and rules. And some of them are incredible. They keep us safe, but I don't know, just all seems bonkers when you look at it like
Sounds a
that.
little bit bonkers, a lot of it, doesn't it? I love getting naked. I'd have been naked with if it wasn't quite so cold and wasn't at Hesham. Yeah.
Has anyone else got a better direction
Yeah,
to take
come
this
on.
in?
Somebody take us in a direction. Colin.
Just gonna go check the thing.
Yeah, we've just got the baby monitor beeping.
I've been meaning to ask for some time, actually, that I know Jenny came across this understanding a fair bit earlier than you. Have you actually both had some sort of instruction on how to become a facilitator? I mean, I don't want to be one, but I'm just curious.
Paul just said he's aware that you came across this a lot earlier than me. Have we had training in being a facilitator?
Yeah, so my initial thing was with Dr. Roger Mills, where I did a core course and then was part of a train the trainer program. So he called the first course that he did, which was 3 days, a core course, and then he came back and did 2 or 3 more weekends. So I was involved in that, and then I went out to Lacona and sort of did a mini internship there. And then I've been an auditor on the One Thought Institute with Aaron. So I was filming and also auditing. So being an auditor meant that you could observe, but you couldn't interact because it was a different price band. And then we spent 3 months in Santa Clara County, sort of being involved in the core program there, which was training facilitators and facilitator meetups, and then going into the prisons, the jails, kind of learning on the ground. And then really it's just been through spending time with different facilitators. When I did the movie site, we were so lucky that we just got welcomed into people's homes and got to view people's trainings and be part of things. So it's really hard because you can't, I mean, people do accredit this now, but it's so hard to accredit something that's insight based because you can't really measure insight. And you can be around this doing a train the trainer program for a year, but miss the message and not find as much benefit. And someone could be on one course where suddenly they wake up to something so incredible that it changes lives and they just go on to share.
And they bypass the person who spent a year doing the training.
Yeah. So I think yes, and I've been really lucky. I've loved all the different things I've done. I know that after some of it, I would come away feeling inadequate because I'd want to be like the people that ran that training because I love their stories or I love their metaphors, and I'm not massively into, metaphors don't really come to my mind and diagrams don't really come to my mind, and I'd start judging the way that I shared against other people. So in some ways they were helpful, in some ways they weren't. The time I got to spend with Chip Chipman and Jan and Elsie on Salt Spring was lovely because it was so every day, hanging out, gentle. This is within you, and just speak from what you've seen, speak from what you know, and actually, the more that you do that, the more that you'll see. And it was so ordinary. And people like Dr. Dickon Bettinger has spent a huge amount of time with myself and Rudy, and then myself and Dave. Keith Blevins and Valda Monroe, they gave so much time to me and Rudy. Yeah, so I feel so grateful to have spent so much time with like first generation teachers. I got to see Sid in person once for 3 days and be involved in some of his calls early on in the early 2000s. But yeah, it was one of those weird things where I used to feel totally like out of my depth because I'd always be around other teachers who were psychologists or psychiatrists. And then I remember asking Elsie once about, you were, I think she'd been a secretary and a housewife when she started spending the time with Sid and having her shift and sharing. And I was saying, I feel quite insecure that I'm around all these people that have got doctorates and all these qualifications. And she went, you're one of the lucky ones. She said, that's a good thing that you haven't had all of that, dearie. You've got less to see through. And it really inspired me. And another person early on in my learning, it was in 2009 when we started doing the movie site. A lady called Gabriella Maldonado Montano took me and Rudy into the jail system. And I thought I was just going to observe her sharing. But instead she was like, Jenny, I'd like you to take the class. I was just like, what? So it was in a veterans class. And I just started speaking and got in conversation. And we had like a really lovely group. And then afterwards, me and Gabriella had gone off to the toilets, and afterwards she went, do you know what? I will co-facilitate with you anytime. That was beautiful. And it's like little things like that really started to give me my confidence. So it wasn't ever really the training that gave me confidence. It was sharing from what I'd seen and being in groups and just getting out there. Like it. And I think the nice thing is I know that for some people, they listen to me and it does nothing and they think, what are you talking about? And then there's other people that feel really impacted by me. And I've had some really beautiful messages on Facebook and YouTube. And then I've had some really negative comments. But it's been through this understanding that I've been like, I don't care. Like, I don't care what people say or think now. All I can do is show up from my heart and do my best to help people and point people. And I won't be of everyone's taste, and that's absolutely fine. But pre this understanding, someone that would say something negative about me, I'd never do it again. I'd just be like, I'm not doing this. But I think like everyone on this call in some way will be a facilitator, because there's things that you've seen that you've probably taken for granted now that at some point you've shared with someone, or just your presence around another being has been beneficial. So I kind of see everyone as facilitators to varying degrees. Some do it for a job, some just in their everyday life. And even before this understanding, there'll be times where you're in understanding and what you've seen help someone. And I think that's one of the things I love when I do intake with people, is I really listen to where they already have seen something about life. They're already in alignment with what's true. Because everyone has had insight, everyone has seen things that are changed their lives. So I think for a while it felt like, wow, this is so huge, there's so much information. How can I train enough, and how can I train other people enough to share this? And then it was like, actually, this is so simple. This is so everyday. This is so right now. Show up with someone present, point out things that you've seen that are true, listen, and like magic happens. Like it really, really does. It's far simpler than any of these words when we actually wake up and shift. And you know that, Cole, because I remember watching you just burst out laughing on that course.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know. I wouldn't say I've done any facilitator training. I've just one second. Is that connected, or is it just cold?
Keeps linking and then unlinking.
All right. No, I've not really done any facilitator training. I found what I found and then just started sharing. But I think because what I found was so watertight and rock solid, I was exceptionally confident in what I'd found. I remember when I was going through my depression, I didn't want to be a tree surgeon anymore, and I'm like, what skills do I have? I didn't really have any qualifications. I had qualifications with a chainsaw, with a rope and harness, and a chainsaw, and a wood chipper. And I was thinking, well, they don't transpose into any other industry other than killing trees. So what do I have as a skill? And I just remember coming back to, I can talk to people. I'm comfortable talking to people. Well, that's fucking useless. I'm never going to do anything with that. That's absolutely useless. Oh God, life's just not worth it anymore. But here I am. This is what I do for work now. I talk to people and I help people understand. I'm with Jen. I don't think you can train facilitators. You know, people can really remember what you say. And as you try and measure that through a series of questions or however you choose to measure it, it's very easy for people just to regurgitate what's been said. How could you tell the difference between, how could I, as somebody who's measuring to see whether this is a qualified facilitator, how could I tell whether or not that individual's seen that insightfully or whether they're just regurgitating what they've heard? You see, on one hand, it doesn't really matter. But on the other hand, I feel like so much of this conversation is non-verbal. So much of this conversation is a resonance. You know, the words are secondary to the feeling in this respect. It's like, where's that person coming from? And you'll often find that, like Jen was saying, you know, some of the people who I want to kind of hear from are the people who hear. They're the people who, like, the people who hear, those people who gain insight, those people who have a realization, whose lives start to change, you know, and who can actually actively demonstrate that their lives have changed. You know, they're the people who, and that can be any of us, that we're the people that kind of come into this world and into this kind of modality, and we're the people that can help other people. You know, all you have to do to shift somebody's experience from one of suffering into lighter is bring somebody hope. You have to do. You show up and go, do you know what? I had this really crappy life at one point. Life was really hard. I know life can be hard, but do you know what? I found this way, found the way through. You know, and somebody who's open, who goes, oh, okay, do you think I could have that? Yes. Really? Yeah. Okay. Instantaneously, instantaneously, what is that word? Instantly, you've shifted that person's experience. You've helped to create a new reality for that person just through somebody gaining hope. Hope is far better than despair. So, you know, I feel like if somebody wanted to go and do facilitator training, cool. But really, it should be seen as a grounding for yourself and not, and like Sid Banks used to say, he used to get the questions, how would you speak to somebody, you know, a refugee? How would you speak to war veterans? How would you speak to people who have this, that, and the other? And he'd go, see this for yourself and you'll know what to say. Yeah, but how would you speak to these people? See this for yourself and you will know what to say. And to me, that's true. You know, it's really quite simple. This isn't complex. Psychiatry and psychology is so complex, ridiculous. I woke up this morning and there's some stuff on ADHD on the radio, and I was listening to it, and they're talking about neurology, and I'm like, what's the point in talking about neurology? What's the point in coming out with all this clever kind of complex language where you sound so clever, so unbelievably intelligent? You sound like you really know what you're talking about. But what use is it to the person who's suffering? You know, when I was diagnosed and they told me that I had chemical imbalances on my brain, it was like, oh, great. Oh, my brain's malfunctioning. Oh, great. How am I going to fix that? Tablets. Oh, God, really? Yeah, tablets, mate. We can balance it out for you with tablets. And like, it seems like the complexity just, the magic doesn't lie in the complexity. The magic lies in the simplicity. We went for a swim yesterday. I was speaking to these two lads and they asked me what I did and I told them and I had a quick crack with them and these lads were like, that's really true. Yeah, that's really true. That's really true. I said, yeah. I said, you know, it's so simple. They're like, yeah. Oh, I'm going to be thinking about this for days. They were going. But that's the thing about simplicity, you know, once you discover it, you've got this endless thing you can study. Yeah, it is an infinite thing. It's the infinite creative force. You are that. We're all that. Everyone on earth is that. The infinite creative force of reality. We create the experience of reality that we then try and measure. But we miss this point that there's this experience this intermediate section that's really everything, almost like a pane of window between inside and outside. We don't notice the window, but it's vital to the house. It's vital to the inside. It keeps it warm, it keeps it dry, it keeps it secure. We pay no attention to the window when we gaze out of it. Gaze out of the wind, gaze out of the rain, the thunderstorm, the night, the moon, the sun, the people outside, the view. We have so little regard for the glass. This intermediary bit between inside and outside, but that's just a kind of like a thing to point to this intermediary, what you may consider to be an intermediary bit, but it isn't actually intermediary. It's everything, this bit between myself and the world. Well, what is this bit between myself and the world? It's called experience. Experience is the only way I ever get to experience the world. Through experience. The only way I get to experience Jenny. The only way I get to experience my feelings, my thoughts, is via experience, this stuff called experience. We're all experiencers. We experience. We've never been taught how to experience. We wake up from birth and we're experiencing. I think we experience before we come in. And I know we experience afterwards. So I've a fairly safe assumption that we experience before. The whole of everything is an experience. It's all experience. Every single scrap of it is experience. There's enough evidence now on this planet. There is more evidence for life after death or reincarnation than there is against it. There is no evidence against it. There's no evidence. But there's so much evidence for it. So experience is this constant, eternal event. But what does change is the flavor from which experience. I'm going to risk this. Is the flavor, bear with me if I have to nip somebody in the bud.
You pull up the thing.
Where is it?
Participant.
Down here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you Ashley? Ashley, can you hear us?
Oh. About half an hour in, because I think he started. Oh no, he started filming around.
Yeah, why does it not tell you how long you've been recording for? Weird, isn't it? Right. Anyway.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Sorry about that. It doesn't even piss me off anymore. I'm just like.
Does it make you feel popular? Someone's
It's
trying to zoom bomb you.
Great, isn't it? But this is, you know, when you start to see all of life as an experience, like these same lads, he said, what do you think about ADHD? I said, I think it's an attempt for the intellect to try and put people into a box. I said, the way I see it is every single human being on the planet creates an entirely unique expression of reality in every single moment. Now, that is a magical thing to ponder. It truly is. Have a look at that. Take the time to consider the notion that nobody on earth is experiencing the reality you're seeing. Nobody else on earth is experiencing the same reality. If it's true, there's 8 billion people on this planet. There's 8 billion realities walking the face of the earth. And then we kind of some people are trying to categorize people's realities, all these 8 billion realities. Okay, so now we need to find out how we can categorize all these realities into kind of subsections of psychiatric label. I said, to me, the psychiatric label is always riddled with flaws. I said, it's not a truth. I said, one person's expression of ADHD is very different to another person's expression of ADHD. I said, it's inconsistent. I said, and it's not in the inconsistent where we find peace. It's in the consistent where we find peace. It's in that's true that we find peace. And I said, some people would say like ADHD, no, it's not a disorder. It's just the way of thinking. I'm like, well, it still contains the word disorder at the end of the label, as though there is a disorder to mind. Mind can never be disordered. Mind works beautifully. Mind is always perfect. The thing that creates the impression of non-perfection is judgment. It's a judgment. It's only from a judgment do we appear not good enough. It's only from a judgment do we appear like there's something wrong with us. I'm ill. And perhaps somebody else has cast that judgment upon us that we really trust, a doctor or a psychiatrist. I'm not knocking these people. They're good people. However, I will put my neck on the line and I'll say that what their means by which they're to bring around peace in a human being is utterly flawed. Utterly flawed. If they are following the mainstream psychiatric model, utterly flawed, based in non-truth, based in inconsistency, based more often than not in medication, trying to medicate a feeling. And I said to this lad, I said, when you're on medications, I said, do you know why you're on medication? He said, yeah, because I didn't think I was well. I said, yeah, but what made you think you weren't well? He went, well, it was the way I was feeling. Yeah, because you felt something you didn't like, you assumed that there was an illness. But feelings aren't illnesses. A feeling isn't a medical issue. A feeling is an expression of consciousness. It's an expression of thought. Jen, I always remember you saying a feeling is like the visible face of thought. More often than not, you don't know what your mind is thinking. However, you will feel it. If you're feeling hostile and you're like, why am I feeling hostile all of a sudden? You have created that experience of hostility within yourself. So to me, it's, if we can, the simpler we find this, and this is what I seem to find, the more time I've spent around this, the simpler it's become, the more simple it's become, the more simple it's become, the more simple it's become. And from that simplicity, we can help people. From that simplicity, the simpler we find this through experience, through lived experience, through realization. Now, I'm not telling anybody how their realization should look, because I don't know. I can only speak for myself. But when we start to realize, and we start to realize how simple it all is, fear dies. Now, if fear dies, there can be no mental suffering. There can be no mental illness. Nobody goes to the psychiatrist and goes, I'm just happy all the time. I'm sure they'd find you a bloody label if you did. Or you suffer from I don't know, something disease or something disorder.
Delusioned.
Delusioned, yeah, you're delusioned. You're delusioned. You can't be happy on this planet. But because I do remember going to a psychiatrist and asking him, like, where's your line for mental health? And he said, Dave, seems to me like my industry owes everybody a massive apology because we never work with mental health. We only ever work with mental illness. I said, okay, then when would you ever diagnose somebody as being mentally healthy? He said, we wouldn't. We would never diagnose somebody as being mentally healthy. We've got a problem. We have got a problem. But thankfully, we also have a solution. And it's through people like yourselves. And it's through people like us and other people who share this, who've got interested in something different, who've realized for themselves something, and they are the ones, we are the ones from the ground up who are changing psychiatry and psychology, because we're actually helping people find peace. We're actually helping people discover their well-being. It never went anywhere. It never went anywhere. You weren't born flawed. You know, throughout our lives, we create limitation. We call that ego. We create an ego, an identity, an idea of who we think we need to be in order to survive this mad-ass planet. In order to be noticed, in order to be loved, in order to be, I don't know, respected. But when you wake up and you realize, well, to be loved, well, hang on, love is the fabric of who and what I truly am. I don't need to be loved. I am love. Wow, okay, all right. I don't need to start to be that kind of person anymore. I can relax here. I can relax. You know, when you start to realize that whether I'm respected or not doesn't matter. That's their experience. If somebody doesn't respect me, well, it's not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of how they're creating in that moment, what reality they're perceiving in that moment. Now, is their reality more true than my reality, or more true than anybody else's reality on the face of this earth? No, it's not. So really, it doesn't really matter what people think about us, you know. And so it's quite simple when we start to discover the simplicity of life, that we are endowed with this mind, whatever mind is, we are this mind force that is consciously aware, and it is infinite potential filled. And those infinite potential, we call it thought. We are this singular force that is conscious, aware, infinite creator force that creates the experience of reality, the experience of reality. Okay, when scientists go looking for reality, they're looking through the very thing that they're searching for. How do I know this is hard? Because I experience hard. How do I know water's wet? Because I experience wet. Take away experience, how much reality is there? The experience is really the thing that we've been looking through the whole time, but ignoring it like the glass pane. And the more we become aware of not necessarily how the experience is showing up, because the experience will show up in all kinds of ways, none of it broken. You know, I know people dear people to me, who've been what I would look at and go, wow, they're in some form of alternate universe. Maybe they are. I don't know.
That's normally me,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah. But like so lost in what people would call psychosis or something like that. But knowing what we know, we've kept them out of the psyche system. We kept them out of the psychiatric system then, and now they're well, they're not medicated, because we know fine well that all experience is temporary. The fact of experience isn't. It's permanent. But the flavor of which the experience is taking on is temporary. It's like Lakeland weather. Lake District weather. You don't like the weather, give it 5 minutes. It blows in, it blows out. But the more respect we have for the fact that we are creating that experience, the less victimhood we live out of. And when we know that we're creating it, what is there truly to be afraid of? That's where the freedom lies. The freedom lies in the capacity to experience all of life.
Yeah, I was just gonna,
Nice.
I was gonna say, because we sometimes see things a little bit differently over this, but the term neurodiverse, I think actually, if we apply that to every single being on the planet, can be quite a helpful thing, because then you start to realize we all learn in different ways, we all thrive in different ways, like we all learn differently. And like if you can see that we're all different, rather than it be, now you've got this label that you're neurodiverse. Well, if you realize we are all different, then we are all diverse. That statement, that name applies to every single being on the planet. And I do think, like, I know I learn much better visually. If I can see and hear something, I'll learn it and take it in way more than I can just hear things. So it's helpful to know that about myself as a character. It's not to say it can't change, but right now that seems to help. And I think as long as we don't attach to some kind of label, like I know people that have said when they got told that they had ADHD, they found that helpful. So, oh, okay, I think really differently and I thrive in this and not this. So to them, the label became helpful. To other people, it's literally made them think about their thinking and then they feel limited. And so it's not even the label, it's kind of what we create and make of that label. You're looking up the definition.
Yeah, I'll see if it's still there.
But yeah, I just think it's a description of behaviour, and behaviour is too late. We want people to find that which comes before behaviour, that which comes before feeling, that which comes before. And that's where we'll find our freedom, and that's where we'll find our peace. Like you often say, you know, Buddha, Jesus Christ, any spiritual teacher didn't know anything about the brain and neurology. They didn't need to know about this form because what they were speaking about was not about this form. It was about what comes before, what creates. So if we can realize that there is no one else on earth that thinks exactly the same as us. We are all different. It makes us more open to communicate better. Like Dave cannot see my world. Like I had a thought the other day, I was like, God, I can't see Lucy as well, but she now also has like dreams that she starts to try and tell me about. I'm like, wow, she's got this whole other dream world that I've got no part in and I can never see. But I was like, well, that's the same for all of us. I cannot see your world, and that blows my mind. So then I have to listen better. I have to get more curious and open, because if we want to live alongside one another, we need to see that no one else thinks like us. And when you can see how your reality, the way that you see life, is so convincing and so true and so real, but then you realise that it is to the next person, it makes us more compassionate. You're like, wow, what that person over there is doing makes absolutely no sense to me. But given how they see the world, it makes perfect sense to them. That makes us more compassionate, more open. All the things that we kind of know help create a more peaceful world. So it's helpful for us to all know that we think differently, that we have different minds that work differently. But the power, what's behind it, is the same. So then we've got what's common to all, which connects us and unites us. And we also see that we do not see the same world because we think differently. So then we're open to communicating differently, learning, listening. Like sometimes I've had to say to you, can you try and say that to me again? It doesn't make sense. And like, I remember when
I said it louder.
Yeah, when we're having conversations about the power of thought and thinking to do with trees. Do you remember this? We were walking around the river. But I was saying, well, I can definitely see how the trees have the power of thought. I can't see how they can have thinking. We kind of just got into this discussion, this not debate, but it was just really interesting because we saw it differently. But when you know that the way that you see it, however real and convincing and true it looks, it might not be. It might not be true. It might not be real. It might just be a creation. You're less wedded to your own belief system. You're less wedded to it. So then there's less to fight. There's less conflict. Like there's times when I just have to say, Dave, let's agree to disagree because I don't know. What I see and feel looks true and real. What you see and feel looks true and real.
So I say it louder again.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work, does it?
But it's nice to be able to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I agree to disagree with you. We see the world differently.
That's the way the world's going to change. Keep saying it. This world is not going to change when we all start thinking the same. This world's going to change when we accept we all think differently. Because that's the truth of the matter.
We only really get into argument when you're trying to convince someone to see the world like you do. I want you to see it like I do because I see it right. And I remember there's been times sometimes on we've done work with people, and then in the evening you're like, do you think I was a bit harsh, or do you think maybe I was a bit direct? And I said, do you know what? I don't know. Like, I would never be that direct. I would probably never be that harsh, but it made sense to you in the moment, and I know you're coming from a place of love, and it's been really nice to not then have all of that judgment. And I know that you are quite capable of kind of getting reflective and seeing, actually, I'm going to say something to them tomorrow that maybe was a bit direct and I didn't necessarily have permission, but to just know that the way that we see the world is not true and right. It's one perspective
And
out
that
of
is
infinite perspectives.
Yeah.
Infinite. One perspective in a moment. That gives us movement to change. That gives us fluidity. And I think the people I see in life who seem to thrive are ones that can move and change and have thought and let go of thought. Have thought and let go of thought. Be flexible. The people I know that really struggle are the ones that are so rigid of mind that the way that they see the world is so true. I can close it now just because I didn't know if we'd be able to hear them.
Can you
on the
keep an
demo.
ear out for her? Can you keep an ear out for her, please?
Is there any questions?
I just
or
wanted to read a
comments?
thing about neurodiversity.
I can't see if there's any questions or comments on what we just spoke
Yeah.
about, and then do that.
Yeah.
There might not be now. But...
Desperate to hear this thing about neurodiversity.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm right?
Not sure.
Do you think you're right? Do you think I'm right?
Don't know.
Wow. All right. The word.
Helen's going to say something.
Oh, Helen.
It might not be. I've just turned the video on.
Helen's just woken up.
Sorry, were you asking questions?
No, sorry. It's only
Sorry.
because I said maybe someone's got a question or comment about what we were talking about. Because Dave's desperate to read something, but I said we'll go to questions first.
I think it's a good topic. Oh, because I've got a few opinions on it.
Would have been silly.
No, the word neurodiversity first appeared in a publication in 1998 in an article by American journalist Harvey Bloom. Now, I'm not sure this is accurate. This is Wikipedia. Okay, when I first read it, it was a lady's name, and Harvey Bloom doesn't sound like a lady's name. The words neurological diversity, which had been used as early as 1996 in online spaces, such as InLiv, to describe the growing concept of a natural diversity in humanity's neurological expression. Wow. So we have this natural diversity, a natural diversity between humanity's neurological expression. Yes. Almost a non-subject, almost a non-topic, but it's become such a big thing. You know, we know people are going, it's because I'm neurodiverse, and you're like, oh, please.
Please don't say that around
Don't
me.
say that around
I'm
me.
gonna have a rant for the next.
Yeah, because now I'm gonna have to try and prove you wrong. No, I don't.
You're right.
I don't. I just listen. I genuinely just listen. But of course, you're neurologically diverse. Nobody has the same brain as me. Nobody has the same brain expression as Jenny, nor has the same brain expression as Cole, Kath, Helen, and whoever. It's all, of course, we're neurologically diverse. It's almost like stepping in the right direction. Like, oh, everybody's brain's different.
But we spoke about this a few weeks ago. The girl on the Dr. Bruce Grayson thing,
Yeah,
that only had a brainstem, she didn't have
she's
brain.
very neurological diverse.
Well, yeah, because she hasn't got the neurology. And you're like,
Got the neurology.
so I feel like as soon as we're looking at the form, we're missing the point.
Exactly.
As soon and that to me is where this conversation is different.
Yeah, and it also lacks the magic of how does the neurology get formed in the first place? What's the power that tells the brain, you know, got this brain elasticity, as people like to talk about, neurological elasticity. What's the power that tells the elasticity of the brain to do what it needs to do to create these synaptic bridges to fire a neuron? What's the energy? You know, what we're looking at is secondary. What we're looking at is a consequence. It's too late. It's been created. It's in the world of form. But there is something that is before the world of form, that is directing, that is telling the neuron to fire. What's the energy behind the neuron firing? What's the energy? If I want to, like I always say, if I want to throw this pen get this pen from here to over there, it's going to take some energy. It's in potential energy, goes into kinetic energy, sound, heat energy as it hits something. What's the energy behind the neurology? What's this intelligence that's telling the brain what to do? That's primary. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the primary. I'm not interested in the secondary. Primary is where we need to be looking. Primary is energetic. Primary is non-physical. Primary is consciousness. A brain without the consciousness of the being inhabiting the body, has no value. It corrodes, just disintegrates back into the earth. Consciousness is essential to neurology. Thought is essential to neurology. As we think, so we create neurological pathways, but thought is non-physical. Thought is infinite potential. That is why that's the magic of these principles. We don't need to complicate this. We don't need to complicate by looking at neurologically diverse and chemical imbalances of the brain and all this stuff. We don't need to complicate it with the body stores trauma. We need to become aware of the energy that is doing all the heavy lifting, the energy that is creating continuously. And that to me is why when Sid when I came across Sid articulating his it wasn't even the principles, his truth that he had discovered. It was like, this man's talking sense. For once, I've come across somebody in my life who is actually talking flawless sense. I can't argue with any of this. I can't argue with it. No, I can't argue with this. This is common sense. This makes so much sense. And it was in the discovery of that common sense that the well-being just exploded within myself. Because it took all the fallacy, it took all the nonsense, all the stuff I've been told by the psychiatrists and psychologists, and it collapsed it into useless, pointless conversation. God bless them. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to knock them for the time and effort, but thank you for that. Thank you for your energy. But
Thank you for wanting to help people.
thank you for wanting to help people. Absolutely. But the common sense logic, the simplicity is where the magic lies. And that's who and what we all are. It's so interesting for the ego, because the ego always wants to be interesting. Why? Because it feels insecurity. It doesn't feel security. Why? Because it's void of the love that we truly are. Of course it's going to feel insecure. It doesn't really exist. It's a fabrication of the mind. It's a ball of thoughts. It's an entity we created for ourselves to keep us safe. Safe from whatever it is we see as threat, other people's thoughts, other people's actions, the feeling of not feeling good enough, not being valid in this world, not being seen, not feeling loved, whatever. But it truly has no power. But no, I think that was, yeah, we've not really covered neurodiversity, have we? Our take on neurodiversity.
Probably, I think we have a couple of times
Yeah,
actually. Because one of the things that when you were speaking is our nephew doesn't fit into like the mainstream education system. He doesn't work in time. Like he's 13 and like still the days of the week and this idea of like you can't tell the time on an analog clock, and it doesn't make sense to him to think in that way. And like the way that he thinks and the questions that come to his mind are so different to what comes to my mind. And it's amazing watching him like absolutely fall in love with karate, and he's just so good at it, and he loves chess.
He's
and
phenomenal at chess.
he's very connected, and he loves nature. And I think like more and more I'm seeing how we have created these belief systems that have infiltrated like every area of the planet,
social boundaries
and norms and ideas of who and what we should be, whereas we haven't got that like child-led, child focus. We're all different. How's that person going to thrive? How's that kid going to thrive? What do they love? What skills do they have? What passion do they have? Like we've just tried to channel everyone through this one system, and it doesn't work, and we've got all these unhappy kids. But we had a friend, we've just met some new friends, we're getting on, we had to spend the day with them the other day, and one of the things that Joe said to you was that when he was in Brazil and he saw some of the areas where they clear out the rainforest, they realized underneath the rainforest the earth and the land had been worked before. It definitely had civilization on it before, using it for whatever. So this idea of these ancient forests and how long they've been there.
Well, you're saying about the
might not be,
because we were up at the Stone Circle, weren't we, in Troutbeck, and he was saying that this pattern of circular, he said that's even been found in the Amazons, these circular kind of megaliths were pre-existing before the rainforests.
so, but just hearing that the other day when Dave said it, I was like, everything that we've been taught, everything that we've been told is best guess given our measuring tools. And I was kind of sat there going, oh my God, everything I learned at school, I don't know if it's true. I think that's probably why I loved, like at school, I loved mathematics. I loved it because it's like it felt like that was something black and white. It was either wrong or it was right. Whereas everything else really felt like made up information. Like, is that really what happened? Is that really what is it really what the atom looked like? You asked your teacher and got kicked out. Like, just we don't really allow our minds to be inquisitive, because like, no, this is how it is. This is true. This is fact. And I'm like, wow, what we think we know may not be true. So if that's the case, I feel like it does open up that infinite field again of new knowledge, of original thought coming to mind about, have insight around how did this all come about. We can have an insight around that and see something, because we're still part of that ever was, because it's only ever been now. And that was just blowing my mind. Like, we could have original thought and experience of what has taken place before, because we're not separate from it. There's just, I remember Keith Levin saying once, Sid said to him, what this universe is made from? And Keith in his head, he said he was like going off thinking, well, planets and this and that, and he didn't answer. And then Sid just said, it's a hunk of knowledge. And we are not separate from that knowledge. We are that knowledge. We are that force. We are that intelligence. And it's only belief, which is thought, that limits us and creates separation, creates fear, creates all of those things in the world. Thinking that we know something and we're more right than somebody else, that we know the way. Like, we've got a friend who really wants a family member to get involved in the principles, but the family member isn't interested. And I think they sort of, but I said, but this might not be the language that lights them up. That actually there may be some other conversation that they listen to, or a book that they read, or a song that they hear, or something that comes to their mind that lights them up. And that's okay. Or not. They're all right regardless. They're all right with their ups and their downs and their struggles. Just love people. Just love people as they are. Nobody wants to feel like you're trying to change them. It's horrible. I know when someone's trying to change me, and I totally resist it. And I think that's why in so many ways, it does boil back to what is this conversation? What is this facilitation? What is this understanding? What is this learning? It's like, it's love. Love someone and see them. See who they really are before the story. If you see someone before the story, there's way more hope that they will see that for themselves. And be less attached to their story.
Or even if you start to realize what the story is made of, you know, like it's very easy to condemn, it's probably men I'm talking about more right here, but men for being like aggressive and violent and stuff like that. And but when you can see that, you know, an individual is only aggressive and violent, like my little Jack Russell Rusty, you know, when he was insecure, he'd bite people. If he felt threatened, he'd bite people. You know, it's really easy for us to condemn people for their behavior, but once you start to become aware, it's like you start to see behind the behavior. It's like, oh well, people behave like that because, you know, they're feeling insecure.
Defending
They're
themselves.
defending their little selves. They're defending their little patch of the world, and that only comes from insecurity. And it allows us to communicate better with that individual. It allows us to. It opens up communication between people. Should we have a break?
Yeah.
Let's take a 10-minute break, everyone. Go and get a cup of tea.
Tea.
And then we'll come back and we'll see what's going on with questions, reflections, and observations. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. And you never went anywhere if you're watching this in catch up. So, seamless transitions. Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to share? Any questions, reflections, observations? Anybody who take the conversation in their direction?
May I ask a question, please? You're talking about labels like ADHD and neurodiversity. I don't know if that's a label, but we are going through people with labels with dementia and cancer and all those sorts of labels. How, just wonder what your thoughts are on those sorts of things, whether I should be looking at them the same way as you've just explained, or I don't know.
Cool. Thank you, Helen. I'm sorry that's your question. That's I'm sorry for you and your family, love. I hope everybody's all right, and we'll send you all love.
Thank you.
We'll be putting you in our prayers. Yeah. Do you want to speak to that?
I was going to say, I think the thing that came to mind was that can we still see someone despite the label? I understand like cancer has a, you know, the physical thing happening. With dementia, we know we've got all these ideas and concepts, but you see the behaviours completely changing, memory loss, strange behaviour, all those. I had two nans that both deteriorated with dementia. But I think the thing that comes to mind is, can we still love someone despite the label, despite what they're going through? And I think that's kind of more the question in my mind. Is like, I know my dad said when he realised with his mum, actually it was just kinder to go with the story, be whoever she thought he was, play along with, you know, talking about when she was working in a school and all those things. He said it's like he could just love her however she was showing up. And the thing that created the sadness is when he tried to hold on to a person who he thought she should be. And I think that was something that really was helpful for him, is seeing that love transcends even death, and that actually he could still love the mum that he'd always known, because that still existed within him, and then he could also love how she showed up in the moment and be with her. He was really, really kind to himself in these moments where he would grieve, because I think that's a very natural thing, is to grieve if somebody that you know is suddenly not showing up how they always have, especially a loved one. And I think it's very easy with labels such as cancer and those kind of things to suddenly everything become about that one thing. And we forget that the person is a person in their own right, with loves and likes and dislikes, and like, how can we bring more joy to that person? Because it's very easy. You know, people say, you know, as soon as you hear the C word, it's like, it's terrifying, and we run off into the future. And I guess being really kind to ourselves, like what is helpful for us to stay present? How can I stay in my best space to be of service to somebody else who's going through something? So I think it's starting with that kindness for ourselves, of especially when we're with people we love. Like the amount of emotion and attachment and all of that stuff that goes on for us as human beings here on earth. And I think sometimes with the principles, it can sound like somehow we get to transcend the human experience. And I definitely feel like we have moments of that. And I know for sure that even in the midst of very difficult times with family, I've experienced the deepest peace and love I've ever known. But also, I've totally accepted the fact that I've grieved, I've been cross and angry, all of the emotions. And there's just the compassion for this experience of being here on earth as a human being. And I think we can be quite hard on ourselves, we can be quite hard on others. But I think, in a way, the label can in a way be viewed in the same way we were speaking about the other labels. It is just a description. But it is describing something physical that is going on. But we know that we're so much more than that. And I think if we can keep sight of that in somebody, when maybe they can't see it for themselves. Like, I think the hardest part for both my nans was when they knew that they were getting dementia. So they had one foot in like the old world, and then this other foot in this totally other world, and they switched between. And actually, it was easier on all of us when they sort of completely lost touch with their old sense of reality and what was going on, and just lived in this new sort of crazy world in lots of ways. But I do remember the wanting to hold on to who someone was and that feeling. It's in the same way as, you know, if we know somebody might not have long left on this earth, we want to hold on to. And I think, again, this conversation is so helpful because it helps us fall present more often. Like, the person that we love is still in front of us. They might be going through something. There might be challenges, but they're right here, right now. They're here. Because when we run off to, oh my goodness me, how am I going to cope when, and all that future thinking, that unsteadies us. But that's also really natural and normal. It's just what we all do. But I do feel there's something around this conversation that can help just go, right, back now. You know, whatever this time moment is, I can come back to now. And that there is nothing outside of me that I need to experience peace, because that peace is what I'm made of. So that never goes anywhere. And that's the same for every single being on this planet. The person going through whatever they're going through. So that's what came to my mind.
Oh yeah, I liked it. I really liked it, and I don't really want to add too much to it. I'd just say, we know sort of with a talk by Jenny mentioned him earlier, Dr. Bruce Grayson, a man who studied near-death experience and all kinds of things. He does a talk on YouTube called "Does Consciousness Need a Brain?" And one of the things that he speaks about is dementia patients. And he gives a percentage. If I remember rightly, he gives a percentage of nurses who've come across this experience where an individual is struggling with severe dementia, but in the hours before they die, for 24 hours or so before they die, senility comes back. Lucidity comes back. My apologies, well done. lucidity comes back, and they get to have conversation. Not everybody, but it's a documented thing that this, for many people, for 24 hours, they get to have these conversations with their loved ones. And these people who we thought were actually lost, somehow in the moments before death managed to come back into their earthbound historic self and get to have conversations, tell people that they love them and stuff, and know who they're speaking to. So I think there's so much of this we don't yet understand. We don't fully understand the implications, the ins and outs of these things. And I think in the future, things will be quite different. I think things will be quite different. We will see things very, very differently. We know we're just scratching the surface of human potential and healing and all that stuff. But I just really liked what you said, if I'm honest. And Helen, it
I was
is.
going to say one of the stories that comes to mind is my dad went to see his mum, and I don't think she'd spoken. It was either a year or 2 years, and then he went to leave, and he gave her a kiss on the cheek like he always did. He walked to the door, and then she went, "See you later, cheeky monkey," which is what she called him when he was a kid, just out of nowhere, and then back into wherever she'd been. And it really that did something for him. And the other thing was that my granddad, he used to go and see her pretty much every day. He used to drive from Mersey to Halstead, which was a normal speed, about 45 minutes, but he used to drive really slowly because he'd had a crash with my nan in the car when they're in their 30s, and she'd broken an arm and a leg, and since then he'd always driven really, really slowly. So whenever I was coming back from college, if I saw no cars for ages, I knew the next car I was going to see would be my granddad coming back from Halstead. But he used to go in and see her almost daily with photograph albums and take in cassettes of holidays they'd had and be able to show them to her and talk her through photographs. So even when all she did was sit there and stare and would have to be fed and all those things, he'd sit there and he'd talk to her, and like the level of love that he showed towards her when he was getting nothing back was amazing. And I don't know, I had funny ideas about my grandparents when they were alive. I think, children listen to their parents' conversations a lot and pick up on things like that. But I look back now and I think he was really inspirational in that he just loved her, and he did what made sense to him to sort of keep their life together alive. And if we went in, he'd be sat there with his albums and he'd tell the same stories over and over again. But it was just, you could see that it was love that kept it alive for him. And I think wherever she was, I still think she felt that kind of love, and it'd always stroke her hand, and it was just such a sweet thing. And it's funny, bit off topic, but they were always funny about me and my sister watching like things like the news or EastEnders or anything negative, and my mum and dad thought they were a bit ridiculous and a bit over the top. And then since having Luce, we're like, why do we need to fill our minds with like negativity? Why don't we just let kids be kids? And I'm like, oh, like they were so sweet, and just this sweet man. I think he really was an inspiration when it came to my nan, because I found it really, really hard. I was in my late teens, and watching someone not be who I thought they should be, and I found it really, really hard. And I wasn't particularly affectionate, and I sort of not really want to go and visit. But he just, it blew my mind actually how loving he could still be, because that essence doesn't go anywhere.
No.
It really doesn't.
I'd love that, what you're saying about the love thing, because it is quite common for us human beings to spend our time worrying rather than being present and loving. I remember just one conversation I had with one of my dad's customers once, when I was giving him a hand once to fit some blinds. He was away and I fitted this blind for this old lady, and I've mentioned this before in community group, but this lady's story really hit me in the heart. husband went in for an operation, and next thing they got this phone call, you need to come now, the operation's not gone well. So the 5 of them made it to the hospital. When they got there, he was bleeding out, and he was conscious, and he was being stuffed full of gauzes and stuff to try and stop this bleeding out, but he knew he was going. And she was telling me this, and she said we just stood around his table, and she said, and then he went round every single one of us, and he said, so and so, I love you. So and so, I love you. She said he went round every single one of us, said us by name, looked us in the eye, and said, I love you. And then he left. Oh, that was me. I was just a bubbling wreck. I cried. I just cried in this lady's house. And she went, it's okay, dear, he's okay. I said, I know he is. I said, that's not why I'm crying. She said, what is it? What is it then, love? I said, because he's given us the secret to life. He's given us the key to life. I said, your husband must have had so many varied experiences throughout his life. So many memories. He must have achieved so many things. She said, oh, he did. I said, so in his very last moments, I said, he could have spoken about anything he so wished. But in his very last moments, the thing that he chose to speak about, to say, his words of anything he could have spoken about, the words he chose were, I love you. And I just said to her, I said, because if that's what it all boils down to in the end, isn't that what the whole thing's about? What if, rather than worrying about our futures, other people's futures, we love all the way through it as best we can? Become present. We love people through it. I remember that story will stay with me for life. It seems like the most important thing.
It's interesting because that story, when you told me, really struck me. And but my dad's got the label of Parkinson's, and you know, I don't see him sometimes for a few months, and I go back and I notice changes. And one of these changes, I think they call it the Parkinson's mask. My dad's always been very expressive, and now sometimes you've sat at the dinner table and he looks so stern, or I'll be talking to someone and I'll suddenly catch a look of him. Like when I was doing the talk at Viva, he sort of seemed to have just this look on his face, and I'm finding it really disconcerting. Like I'm starting to realize how much I get from someone's expression and that kind of thing. And sometimes I've found it really hard to be patient with him because he's really, really slow, and he's getting me to help with a few more things. And sometimes I'm like, oh, just hurry up. I'll ask him to take a picture of Lucia doing something funny, and it takes him so long to get his phone out of the pocket that she's long gone, and I'm not patient. And I think I've beat myself up a bit about that. And then think that story that Dave said would like stay with me and I'd just be loving all the time, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. Somehow I'm like, God, you're such an arsehole. Why couldn't you have just been kind?
No, but every single time it does come to mind, and you can bring yourself to that, to be loving.
Yeah, no,
it's
definitely.
a gift.
No, yeah, definitely. But it's like
gift.
Sometimes I go to bed and I'm like, oh, why wasn't I just more patient? Why wasn't I just? So I still do that to myself. But the moments when I remember, like we had a day at the zoo, me, him, and my and Lucia. You were off with my mum at a talk, and the 3 of us went to the zoo, and it didn't need to be a fast day. Nothing needed to be done. We just went, looked at the animals. Lucia was happy to go slow, and I saw how present and patient and kind he was with Lucia, and we just had like a perfect day together. And then I really, really like treasure the time we have when it's love, and I'm patient, and and I think, and then I'm going easy on myself when I'm being not kind or impatient, and because my dad does not look like he's looked my whole life, because even though he's aged, he's had these same expressions, and he's got this thing now when he speaks, he gets like a bit of a click. It's a strange thing, and it's so hard to hear him, and he's had such a distinctive voice. His voice is like, in my mind, like such a distinctive voice. It's
Very
like,
powerful voice.
I've always known it, and then suddenly it's like this gentler and gentler, and you're like, I'm really sorry, I can't hear a word you're saying. But I think someone told you a story the other day of they've lost somebody to choking from, they've got Parkinson's. So it can happen at any time suddenly, that I think it's to do with the muscles in the throat and things. And I just thought, wow, like, we live as if people are going to live forever. We act as if people are going to live forever, if we're going to live forever. And I don't know how long. He could go on for years and years and years and years and years, which would be incredible. But I don't know that. And I think every time I remember that, I just get filled with love for him and just give him a quick call. Or and I think it's those moments when we can just love someone, or we get filled with a memory or something funny, and like talk to people, tell people. We don't know how long any of us have.
No.
Like, it could be me that goes first. It happens that quickly. Like, there was a crash that happened, and on the motorway, and I heard, I think it was a whole family suddenly just not there anymore. And you're
Oh,
like,
the young girl in Kendal who was playing football who got hit by a car on the pitch.
yeah,
Like, it happens, doesn't it?
it's just, but we all take it all so much for granted.
Yeah.
And I think when we can suddenly remember, like, this is a gift. Life is a gift. People are a gift.
Yeah.
Even the ones that drive us absolutely mental, but we love with all our heart. I don't know. I think we can be really hard on ourselves. And I think sometimes, like, whenever you've asked questions and things on groups, I always think you're really hard on yourself. But I think if you can be kind to yourself through this time as well, it will help you then be kinder to other people. Because you're brilliant with my dad most of the time. Like, you're so patient, and you tell him you love him so often, and you give him a hug and a kiss on the cheek before bed. And I sometimes look at Dave and I think, oh, why can't I be more like that? And I might show my love in different ways. And I hope that, how much love I shower Lucia with, I can get more open with that. Because that is how I feel about him, and it is how I feel about my sister, and it is how I feel about my mum. But I sometimes find it really hard to say it for whatever reason. But I don't know, when we can.
I think the one thing I would say about this is trying to deal with the future is everything looks insurmountable. Getting all my words wrong today. Everything looks, I'm northern. Everything looks insurmountable. Looks impossible. But when we deal with the now, what is actually happening now? Where are people actually at now? How are they right now? That's a lot easier to deal with. Or, when we get lost in time, it looks tricky. Everything looks tricky when we're lost in time. The future and the past is where suffering lies, neither of which truly exist. The future doesn't exist. It's our thought. It's a thought. The past doesn't exist. The memory, it's a thought. So the more we can get present, the more grace we seem to have moving through this world and through challenging times. And if there's one thing that I do know, it's that we deal with life. We deal with it one way or another. We deal with it. We always have, and we always will. We deal with it. We get through it. There's always a brighter day. I mean, this hasn't played out as yet. Hasn't played out. But stay present. None of us know which way it's going to go. I don't know. I don't know what miracles lay around the corner. I haven't got a clue. I believe there are technologies on this planet that could be very beneficial for health. Getting it wrong again, for health. I probably, if I'm right in what I believe, I don't think we've got too much longer before these things become readily available to people. That'll change everything. How far off are they? I don't know. But I believe they exist. And so any of these things could be reversed. I've got no idea. I think that's possible. I think it's coming if what I look into is accurate. And so coming back into that I don't know, the power of the I don't know. It's only the things that we think we know that we suffer. But when we come back to that, I actually don't know how this is going to pan out. I don't know. I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. I can worry about it now, but I actually don't know what it's going to look like. You align yourself with a truth, a fact, and that truth will guide. It helps set you free. It helps set you free from the torment of the worry and because the truth is we don't know. None of us know. And more people are terrified, but I need to know. You can't make peace with the idea that you don't know because it's a truth. But if you're in the I don't know, your mind is fluid and it will deal with reality. If you're in what you believe to be unknown, you'll be rigid. You will find it even more difficult to become flexible and move with actually what's happening because you've already made your mind up what's happening. It's the same in relationships when people make up the mind about, I know who that person is. The inflexibility of mind will create a division between those two people, that group of people. But coming back to that, I don't know, because I don't know, and then Helen, none of us know how this is going to pan out. But coming back to that, it puts you in the present. Because when you're in the I don't know, you're in the present moment. You're not away in the future. You're not trying to figure it all out. You're not in that I know what happened in the past. And that really is the truth of life. And it's where we are, when we're present, it's where we are our most, what's the word I'm looking for? Struggling with words today. It's when we're at our most powerful. It's where we're at our most useful. But I love everything you said about love because it's true. And like I said, we will absolutely be putting you in our prayers, sending your family that we love dearly, sending you all love.
Thank you.
Group of people.
Everything you've just said is just so helpful. It's obviously exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you very much, both of you.
If you're saying, I know sometimes people can sit and think, oh, I want to say that, but I don't know if I want to say it out loud. And so thank you, because if it's helpful for you, then it'll be helpful for someone else.
Mm.
Is there anything else you want to say on that, Helen?
No, I don't think so. I think it's all stuff that I know deep down. I'm not worried about outcomes particularly, and I think that's also something I found that can come across as, because I'm not a worrier, that can also have its own challenges, because then you're seen as a bit uncompassionate. But I don't feel like I can worry about stuff, exactly what you've just said, that I don't know what the outcome is going to be. So it's a bit of a conundrum in its own way, isn't it? That it's you know, so many people around me spend their lives worrying and creating very scary futures, that, and I'm like, well, if you can predict that, then can you give me the lottery numbers for Saturday night, because that would be a lot more useful.
I like that.
You know, So
I remember being in South Africa working with a young girl once. And she said, you know what? She'd have had the strangest day at school today. She said, we were talking about, it was about kind of being loving and compassionate to friends and how do you show you're loving and compassionate. And she said that every single person was saying that, you know, if your friend's worrying, you should,
Well, to show that you care, you'd worry.
you'd show you care, you'd worry. That's right. She said, even my teacher was trying to tell us that. She said, I was the only person in the class who went, that makes no sense. She said, why would I worry about them? She said, well, but if you're not worrying about them, you're not showing you care about them. She said, no, that's not true. She said, I care deeper for people when I'm not worrying about them. She said, I can love them deeper. I was like, good girl.
mm,
Yeah, because worry in a way is about us, not the other person.
mm,
And I think it's very easy to get lost in it. And it seemed like it's showing that we care and that we love and all those things, but actually we're really self-involved in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's totally innocently, but it looks like it's about the other person, but it's not. It'll be about us.
mm,
But I can see how then people think you're being cold or you're not being
No,
yeah.
I don't think anybody who knows you, Helen, wouldn't associate the word cold.
uncompassionate though.
Or, no, but even
Mm,
It's nice to have a sane person around when
yes.
there's stuff going on. And I think somebody staying present and not running off into the future is a sane person. So even though some people might find it hard, I still feel like there's a real benefit to having a sane person around.
Somebody who's got the house built on stone.
mm,
That was one of the things Mahima said, wasn't it? When we met Mahima, one of our friends from Nepal, and she got in touch with Jenny after the earthquakes and said she came across the principles just before the earthquakes. And then she realized during the earthquake, everything was collapsing, people were dying, they all ran out the house, they were all terrified. And she said, Mika, my niece, burst into tears when the earthquake started to die down. And Mika was crying because the earth had stopped shaking. She thought the earth shaking was fun. And it was in that point that Mahima saw that we live in our own thought created realities. And she said, at that point, I realized I was psychologically safe. That's how she said it. She said, I realized I was psychologically safe. She said, my fear died. She said, all of a sudden I became really present. She said, and I was so useful because she said, I was surrounded by people who were worried and anxious and stressing and crying and doing all the kind of responses you might expect. But she said, I was the one who was sorting out the house to get us all onto the same level. We all slept on the ground level. Should I sorted out bedding? Should I went round all my neighbours' houses and I sorted out their house? She said I could see what needed doing. I just went around and sorted it all out for people. She said there was something so useful to all those people. It was so useful having her in her I'm going to say senility again.
Sanity.
Sanity, in her sanity. She was
As soon as the word dementia gets mentioned to Dave,
I forget it.
he forgets all.
really. Sorry.
I once had this conversation because this lady asked us about dementia, and it was in America, wasn't it? And she kept asking me. I was going, "What's the word?" Jenny went, "Dementia." Yeah, dementia. I forgot the word dementia about 6 times in this
The
conversation.
woman
Jenny,
didn't come back for the afternoon
no,
session.
Jenny's like, "Were you taking the piss?" No, I wasn't. I just couldn't remember the word dementia.
It's one of the weirdest experiences.
I experienced it.
But witnessing it was just like, is this a joke? You somehow
I
trying to
must have
like
been really tired. I'm quite
mind
tired
like
tonight.
bend this woman.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any rule books. There isn't a way to be. You know, we all just navigate our way through it. And don't hold ourselves to any standard. You know, just give ourselves a break. Just, it's not easy when our loved ones go through these kind of things.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Helen, love. Thank you. All right, it's just gone 9. I think we're going to call it a night. Okay, I'm Dave Ellery. This is Jen Ellery, and this has been Freedom Thinking Community Group. If you found this useful and you've enjoyed the content, please consider making a donation. The donation details are in the description below, or you can contact us on our website as well. You can't contact us via the website anymore, can you? Because we took that off, didn't we? Because it was not working. My telephone number's on the website anyway, which is in the description below. If you want to get in touch with us, we want to come and work with us. We work with individuals, couples, groups, all kinds of things. Get in touch, come and work with us. Come and see us. We do intensives in the Lake District where you can come up and spend 4 days with us and really immerse yourself in and take the time out of your life to come and spend time and to learn about this. We get amazing testimonials from that kind of stuff, which should be on our website, but with that crap, we haven't done it. But we just get amazing responses, don't we?
We're getting it updated when we go down.
We're going to sort this out. So yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at info@freedomthinking.co.uk. All the information will be in the description. If you wish to make a donation, PayPal, buy me a coffee, or get in touch with us, info@freedomthinking.co.uk for our bank details.
And please like, share, and comment.
And subscribe.
There we go.
And become a member on the buy me a
thing.
coffee thing. Oh no, what is it? A follower or something? Just click the boxes. Anyway, thank you,
everyone.
Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you everybody who's watching this on Catch Up. If you have any questions on Catch Up, put them in the comments or get in touch with us directly. During that call, somebody got in touch with us. They got a conversation for next week. So we will see you next week, all being well, and just send everybody so much love. Good night.
Good night, Dave and Jen.
Bye. Good
Night.
night.
Loads of love.
Bye.